Grafton, and welcome to the April 28th Grafton School Committee meeting pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in place. This meeting of the Grafton School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that this is, you can log into the webinar via Zoom. It will be rebroadcast later on via social media and on the YouTube channel for Grafton Cable. So for tonight, again, we will be suspending open comment. As always, if you hear something on the meeting that you have a question about, you can always reach out to any of us on the committee or Dr. Cummings, and we will help you. I will take attendance and announce all the committees and school officials who are on the call, and we will have a roll call vote for all of our votes. So I will start. Laura Often, Grafton, Chair of the Grafton School Committee, and I'm going to toss it over to Amy Marr.
Amy Marr, Grafton School Committee.
Heather Riley, Grafton School Committee.
I'll give Melissa a minute. James Cummings.
Yes, Superintendent here.
Tracy Kalo.
Assistant Superintendent here.
Tyler Cogna. Excuse me. Conca. He's here. He's laughing at me. Sorry about that.
Representative here.
James.
James Dewitt, Junior Representative here.
Melissa.
Melissa Maison, School Committee member here.
Okay, Jen Conley is trying. She will be joining us. And we have Dan Gale.
She's in as an finance here.
She's in as an attendee. Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, she knows. She's in as an attendee. Hi, Jen. She's trying again. So we have Dan Gale. We have Bob Wall, who's on mute, but he's here.
Bob Wall, Special Ed Director here.
Excellent. And Nicole McDonald.
Nicole MacDonald, Assistant Special Education Director. I'm here.
Excellent. All right, so Jen will join us. Before we start, I did want to say a couple of things on my school committee chair report. One was a congratulations to our athletic director, Jim Scanlon. He was named a district winner and state nominee for the Theodore H. I can't say that, Damco Award. So congratulations to him. And thank you for all that he does. And just kind of a shout out to everybody out there, our teachers, our admin, our staff, everybody's been working so hard. Today is a National Superhero Day, whatever that means. And we have a lot of fictional superheroes in the world that get a lot of press and movies. But I really wanted to generally say that you are all superheroes to us and to me in particular, especially at this time. And thank you again for all that you do. You know, they make a joke that not all heroes wear capes, but you guys are definitely heroes among us, so I appreciate it. So I don't know if that's a real holiday or not, but I celebrated it today, and I hope you guys can all celebrate. So I'm going to turn this over to Jay. I'm going to try to help Jen get in.
So we're basically combining the district update in the remote learning piece. I wanted to start by recognizing our great Director of Finance, Dan Gale. Dan has accepted the position of Finance Director in Hudson, and he'll be starting there in July. Dan has been, as all of you know, Dan has been absolutely fantastic in every way. And while I'm very happy for him on a personal level, he's going to be greatly missed by me and all of the GPS community. So congratulations, Dan. We're going to hate to see you go.
That's right.
That was very well said, Jay. I know we'll have some time with Dan, right? When's his last meeting? Do we know? When's your last day?
We should have 4 more meetings.
Okay, so we'll have plenty of time to share our thoughts to you, but I guess I had a couple questions, and one is, can you share with the committee why you're leaving? Was it something we said?
No, I want to say that, yeah, I've really enjoyed working in Grafton.
for Jay and the whole admin team and working with the school committee. I hadn't been looking to leave at all, but I was told about the position at Hudson. They do have the salary is much significantly higher than in Grafton. They also have a larger budget and more admin support in the central office. So I just decided that it would be best for my family to take that position.
We certainly understand that, Dan, and thanks for your candor. And I wish we could do more for you, for sure. You've been such an asset, such an asset. I mean, I don't want to dominate, but anybody wants to jump in or.
Yeah, I think obviously, this is Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And see you.
All right. I mean, obviously, your ability to do back of the envelope calculations with lightning speed and come up with something that actually informs the discussion has always impressed me. But what's impressed me more is the care and effort that you've put into the lunch program for kids who need some help. And that says a whole lot about you as a person, Dan, and how lucky Hudson is going to be to get you. And I also think this is a big lesson for Grafton. I know this is not the time when we have more money, but when we do, we need to use it to keep people like you. So thank you.
Thank you.
That was well said, Melissa. Oh, yeah. Now I feel like I need to take a minute because I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves.
No. Jay, did you have any additional updates, or should I turn it over to Bob?
Yeah,
and Nicole?
just
Oh,
one.
Amy Marr has a question. I'm sorry.
No, it's not a question. I just wanted to relay to Dan in front of everybody just how appreciative I have been of all of his help. Coming up to speed as a new school committee member is daunting enough. Not having any finance background myself, I found Dan to be extremely patient, and he was able to explain things to me in a way that if I didn't get it the first time or the second time, I definitely got it the third time. So I really appreciate all of your help, Dan, and I'm going to miss you a lot. I'm sure we'll find someone to fill your position, but it won't be the same without you. And I do hope you keep in touch with us.
Thanks. I'll miss you guys too. I'm definitely gonna keep in touch.
Good. Good. And I'm going to welcome Jennifer Conley. Thank you, Jen. Hi.
Hello. And I will say, Dan, you have been tremendous in helping me since I meet with you often. And whenever just anything I have to ask, you're always willing to answer, whether it's if I'm questioning something that costs $25 or $100,000, you are always willing to answer and have everything for us. So thank you, and I appreciate it, and we'll miss you.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to jump in? Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad we still have you for at least a couple more months.
Yeah, we're going to work them hard for the next 2 months.
Great. Excellent. That's what I like to hear. All right. Now, can we move on? Are we to move on to Bob and Nicole?
Almost. I just want to
Okay.
quickly thank, you were great in thanking the entire staff. Everybody stepped up beautifully, but I really wanted to just spotlight our technology team. Today and tomorrow, they're handing out an additional 100 Chromebooks, and they're going to be doing that on a like a pickup basis. Today and tomorrow, I think we're at Millbury Street Elementary, and then going forward every Wednesday, they're going to be based in the North Street parking lot, giving out additional Chromebooks. So they've done a fantastic job managing the process of giving out hundreds of Chromebooks and supporting the use. So small team, but they're doing fantastic work. So just wanted to highlight their efforts.
Jay, question for you. First of all, has that come out of the school budget, or is that donations, just out of interest? And second of all, is it enough, or do we need more?
All of the Chromebooks that we've given out are the Chromebooks from the schools. So basically the tech team went into all of the schools, pulled all the carts apart. So we had, I think it was between 500 and 600, and we've given out, I think, maybe 400 roughly at this point. So we're in pretty good shape right now.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Laura, that was all I had.
Okay, thank you. Question from the audience before we go. So we are not, I announced at the beginning of the start, we are not taking public comment. If people have questions or concerns post-meeting, they can reach out to us via email or on our social media Facebook page, which is the, and Jay or I will get back to you, or any one of us who was on the call. We can take the email and we can address before our next meeting, and then we can address it publicly at our next meeting. So thank you for that question. And then I will pass it over to Bob and Nicole.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We've prepared a presentation for you all. So I wanted to start off talking about communication with students and families, because this has been stressed as one of the most important issues for us to attend to during the closure.
Bob, sorry to interrupt. Do you want to share your screen so everyone can see?
I thought I had, I'm sorry, I'll try it again. All right, is that better? Apologize for that.
You're fine, yep.
All right, sorry about that. So one of the, as I had mentioned before, we've been emphasizing communication. So we've had individual regular communication via virtual platforms, email, and phone contact through liaisons and service providers. And there's also been district-wide communication from the special education department. So that gives families the opportunity to have updates around what's going on as we get updates from the Department of Education as the situation has evolved. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that, Nicole?
Nope. I think what has been probably most poignant is that individual regular communication via the virtual platforms. So some of our teams are using Seesaw at the younger levels, Schoology at the older levels, and some Google platforms as well. I think that has probably been the most poignant communication about just where we are and the services we're providing.
All right, thank you very much. The next piece of this is I wanted to just talk a little bit about some process updates. So again, as we discussed, we started off with communication and generalized activities with students, and then activities and supports have become more individualized. Now they may include specific student consultation, accommodations to be utilized at home, modifications to presented remote learning general curriculum. And parents have also received their individualized remote student learning schedule via email outlining how services are being implemented for their child. IP evaluations, both initial and reevaluation, if the testing was not completed prior to the closure, are paused until schools reopen, because of course we're not able to do that one-to-one piece that we are required to do as a part of those evaluations. I just need to have, I'm sorry, I just need to have the, there we go. And then as far as annual IEPs, 504s, and completed initial and reevaluation testing, those team meetings are being held remotely, either virtually through a Zoom platform, Hangouts, or whatever, with parent consent. If parents opt to wait until school opens, current IEPs will remain in effect until which time it is that the team meets to review the annual IEP. And that again is not, that's from the State Department of Education.
Bob, I have a question for you. This is Melissa Maison. Thank you so much for this.
Mm-hmm.
Where you say that IEP evaluations, initial and re-eval, are paused until schools open. So from that, do I take it that, let's say a kid is profoundly dyslexic, that child will have no additional help because it's been paused? So, you know, we've been reading a lot in the news about how kids are already experiencing the summer decline. And I worry that if someone who really ought to have additional accommodations and support, just because the timeliness of the IEP is impossible, will have a further decline over the last bit of the school year in the summer. And is there anything that we can do about that?
Well, students who have dyslexia, typically they'd already be identified by their building. So they're already in reading intervention support. So it's not that they don't have any support whatsoever. Special education is more of a memorialization of that, so that now they have a plan that specifically talks about what their goals and objectives are, assuming that they're not making progress with their current reading intervention program. So students who have dyslexia are being supported through their reading specialists at the school level. It just means that right now, while it is that we're in the closure, if they were in the special education evaluation process, that evaluation would be paused.
I appreciate that, and I really appreciate how much everyone is doing, but I would suggest that with the learning situation the way it is, that students who perhaps were getting by are potentially now being unveiled as having needs that have not previously been diagnosed. So I would challenge that and say that there may be students, not just dyslexic students, but other students with specific learning disabilities that may be coming out of the woodwork now. And I worry that this would imply that nothing will be done until everything is normalized, which could be a very long time. And then we have the summer coming up when these students will experience the slide even more so that all students do.
And I do appreciate that, but part of what it is that we're going to look at is that when you talk about the slide, it's not a slide necessarily just for specific students, but we're also talking about an entire cadre of students. Everybody who's in education right now is going to experience their amount of slide. And one of the things that we do as a part of a special education evaluation is make a determination compared to the non-disabled peers, how much regression has occurred. And that's impossible to do while it is that we're not in session. We're not able to get the kind of data it is that we need to get in order to make a determination of special education services. That's not to say that we can't provide support to students, that we can't provide accommodations. We can provide, a district curriculum accommodation plan. There are many other things it is that we can do, but under state and federal law, we're not allowed to go forward with evaluations at this time.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that this was a state or federal law.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Part of the problem is the actual evaluations being conducted aren't standardized and normed to be done remotely or virtually. So that is kind of a huge barrier in a lot of the evaluations that could be conducted, is being able to utilize those as kind of valid testing if they're not done in the prescribed manner that a standardized test has. So that is kind of a huge challenge that the Department of Education is still looking at for us to help give us a little more guidance on.
Yeah, I can imagine how much, how difficult the situation is for all of you. I just wanted to make sure that students who are perhaps have not previously been identified as having needs. I think all students are going to have needs right now, but there must be some students who are coming through and have more needs than others.
No doubt, I would agree. Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Absolutely. The final note that I just wanted to make for this slide here is that IP documentation continues to be distributed through mailings. Whenever we have team meetings, the team meeting documentation is still continued to be distributed to parents as we have done traditionally. Our secretaries have been going into the office and making sure that the mail still runs. So that's an excellent thing. And they've been phenomenal. Both Gail and Marita. Marita's new to the team. They've both done an amazing job. Very, very happy with them. Continued areas of growth and planning. Just to remind people that remote services cannot and they're not expected to replicate or replace the in-person services and instruction that we typically present. This makes the provision of remote services to our most intensive students challenging, and also remote services for certain therapies and therapy areas also are, it's a challenge for us to be able to provide those sorts of particular therapies. So staff are doing the best it is that they can around consulting to parents and being able to provide some support to those students, but there are some places where you just can't replace a person face-to-face. Some parents we know are overwhelmed with remote learning services due to a number of challenges, and we're trying to continue to be sensitive to that. There's a delicate balance between leaning in an appropriate amount, and there are always going to be some that are going to wish that we did more, and there's always going to be some that we're going to wish that we did less. So we're really trying to work to find that middle ground, and that's different for different families due to their circumstances, both their health situations, their families, the number of students it is that they have at home, and whatever. So we're continuing to monitor that to make sure that what it is that we do to the best extent that we can meets the needs of the families as well as the students. We've also, in as late as today, we still have students that are transitioning from early intervention services. This is a challenge throughout the Commonwealth. As Nicole is fond of saying, children turn 3 every single day.
They do. Kids turn 3 every day.
And so providing early intervention services is a real challenge in this environment. So I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about what we talked about earlier today around early intervention, Nicole?
Sure. Yeah, so typically for those folks that don't know how that process typically works, the school district gets a referral from an early intervention provider for a student that has been identified as disabled through early intervention, and that they suspect may continue to need services as they're transitioned to 3 years old. So what typically happens from there is we would do a special education evaluation for that student. And through that evaluation, explore exactly what types of services might be needed for that child as they turn 3. There are regulations that do state that when children turn 3, if they are identified as having a disability, we should be providing services for that child. So we are kind of exploring what that means for us, especially since we're pausing evaluations. There is a, I don't want to call it a loophole, but a little bit of a loophole in the regulations regarding the evaluation process. We are allowed to utilize a student's IFSP, which is like an IEP, but for early intervention. So it's an individualized family service plan. So we are allowed to utilize aspects of that would work for the school district. So Bob and I are exploring exactly what that will look like for some of our kiddos that are turning 3 in May and June, that we will not be able to necessarily evaluate based on the access to the child remotely. As you can imagine, I'm sure, you know, with the standardized testings, assessing a child who's 2.5 remotely is a whole different ball of wax. So we're really trying to explore what that looks like for our kiddos and how we can use the IFSP to bring those students some services when they do turn 3.
And the last thing that we wanted to talk a little bit about on this slide is extended school year. I think of this right now as the last shoe to fall. Right now, we're kind of waiting to find out what the direction is going to be from DESE as to whether or not we will be allowed to conduct our typical extended school year program. We currently are planning to do exactly that, and we're sending home paperwork as if that is the plan and that is what we hope will be the case. Understanding that that may not be the case, and if we have to step back and retrench, we will be providing some sort of remote services over the extended school year program to provide some support to those students who are having some issues as far as their expected growth in their educational services. So we will be providing extended school year services. It's just right now we're not sure about the method in which it is that we'll be providing such services. Are there any? Yep.
Yeah, oh, I didn't realize you were at your last of your slides. We're getting a bunch of questions from a participant in the audience, which is wonderful. I wanted to ask our committee. So typically, if we're in a school committee meeting, if we were live, we don't typically take questions, fired at us or one by one. I would ask the committee if you were okay with somebody coming up and asking questions. I just wanted to confirm it was okay for us to answer the questions. I did say we were going to hold off on public comment, but I'm happy. I do like to hear from our audience. So are people good with us getting questions from the audience?
I think that's fine, but I wonder, could we just ask
Yeah,
if there are questions?
I'm going to have the committee first, Heather, of course, because we might have the same questions or different questions, and then I'll go to the audience.
Perfect.
So we'll get sure everything's addressed. So thanks, Heather. And did you have a question? I'll turn it over to you first if you do.
I did have a question, and it has to do with once we are back in the building and able to do evaluations at some point, and I don't think there's an answer to this right now, but will we put plans in place to maybe expedite or prioritize, like how to deal with the large number, I guess, of evaluations that might need to take place, and how do we facilitate that so that they happen as quickly as possible?
That's an excellent question. So our team chairs, who are the people that chair our IEP meetings, initial evaluations and reevaluations, have been discussing that exact question with parents. So a reevaluation, we do have the flexibility to waive it with parent consent if parents would like to do so. Part of it depends upon the substantial nature of the disability, and part of it depends upon the purpose of the evaluation. Some evaluations are substantially around ensuring the students continue to qualify for special education services. Other evaluations, we know through the students' progress currently in the curriculum that they will continue to qualify for special education services. It's more of a check-in to determine the amount of growth it is that that student has experienced over the past 3 years, to give us a benchmark, if you will. So team chairs have been having discussions with parents so that for those that are involved in the reevaluation process, whether or not those parents are comfortable waiving the reevaluation for this year and having their reevaluation at their next annual review meeting, which would be around, March, April, May, June, or if they'd like to have their reevaluation as we return in the fall. So parents have that option, and then based on who decides how they want to move forward with their reevaluations, then we would take a look at the evaluations it is that we have in queue and prioritize from there based on whether or not, first, it's an initial evaluation, because those, obviously, we want to know whether or not those students qualify for services, but then also those students that have evaluations that might be more timely because, for example, they're not making adequate progress. So those are things it is that we have considered, and we will be considering from now until which time it is that we are able to resume our evaluations.
And I think we also want to be very mindful about providing our staff time to do a thorough evaluation as well. So my hope is that, I know we may be a little overloaded in the beginning, is that will even out, but I want to make sure that we are providing our staff and the child enough time to kind of present what they have and what their skills are. So I don't know that we'll necessarily expedite the timeline for that. We probably want to hold on to some of that timeline to just make sure that we are providing a nice thorough evaluation that gets a whole picture of the student. I would hate to do that to the student or the family to kind of quickly scroll through that evaluation. So I think we're going to be kind of trying to really stick to the timelines that we have outlined for those, but definitely starting with those kiddos that maybe their evaluation was started but wasn't able to be finished.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the committee?
I did want to ask one question about ESY, if I could. I know ESY is not always recommended to students who are on IEPs. Are you expecting an uptick in kids that are going to get recommended simply because of the shutdown? Or are we going to see that? And if so, could you quantify that?
That's an excellent question as well. At this current time, we really don't know. The State Department of Education has asked that we make ESY decisions based on the students' progress it is that they were making prior to the closure. There may be some students that, based on the closure, if we were to have face-to-face, might need some additional services that would not be something that specifically that student might require if there had not been a closure. And certainly we would consider those. That begs the question, of course, of whether or not we're at a remote ESY or if we're in a face-to-face ESY. If we're in a remote ESY, then again, that's something else that we'd have to take into account and make a determination of whether or not that student has an appropriate need and also would be able to benefit from having the services that they require be presented in that manner. So unfortunately, in this area, there's as many unanswered questions as there are questions. It's brave new territory for us. As far as quantifying that, that's very, very difficult to do. Typically, we have about 40% of our special education population that participates in our ESY program. It's hard for me to say at this point where that would go. Again, it depends upon whether or not we're having face-to-face services or remote services. And I think that those numbers could change in either direction depending upon both of those variables. The most important thing that we do is that if there is a parent that has a concern about their child making progress, they always have the option of requesting an IEP meeting and the IEP team going over the progress it is that that student has made and then make a determination if they require ESY or, in these circumstances, some additional services over the school break. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it you know, it's I get the position you're in. It's hard to answer these questions when, you know, we're still kind of, I mean, we're still stuck at home, so we don't know yet.
Right.
But I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
All I can do is speculate based on previous information in past performance, but right now, to be honest with you, it is speculation. I don't have any hard and fast numbers that I can say this is what it is that's going to be, because this is unprecedented.
Right. Bob, I have a couple questions. My first question is regarding our students in the who are turning 22 years of age during this crisis. How are we helping them? Are we able to keep them on longer?
So that, again, is something that's being done on a case-by-case basis. Sean Levangian, as well as Megan Babineau, are the people it is that are monitoring those sorts of circumstances. Those students,
And luckily, right now, we don't have anybody.
yeah,
Turning 22. Hopefully, you know, when we do come back for the fall, I think we have some kiddos turning 22 towards the winter fall time. So my hope is that we are back and, you know, they won't kind of fall off. But as Bob said, Sean is still working with team meetings and working with adult agencies to ensure that that transition goes as smoothly as possible, especially in this time.
Okay, thank you. And I have one other question. So I know everybody's worried now and over the summer, and I'm sure you all agree with me too. I'm super concerned about when we get back. Are we going to be staffed appropriately? Are we going to have the resources we need and how we can start planning for them? And I know some of that's probably an unanswered question right now, but we're going to probably to have increased reevaluations, or we're going to have increased IEP meetings. How are you feeling about that? And is there anything we can start thinking about that Nicole, you and Bob will need?
So that is an excellent question, and we do meet on a bi-monthly basis with both our speech language pathologists and with our school psychologists, specifically because they're the people it is that are most likely to have the largest number of evaluations once we return to school, because they're typically the people that do the most evaluations throughout the school year. So we would continue to monitor that. We might need some short-term assistance from a staffing agency in order to get some evaluations done. However, we feel strongly that we have the best staff going. So to the extent to which it is that we can, we prefer to have our students being evaluated by our regular staff, but there may be instances where we have to actually reach out to some agencies and see about getting some additional support to make sure that these evaluations are completed in a thorough and timely manner.
Okay. All right. And you'll obviously keep us posted for what you may need.
Yep.
Great. So I want to check in with the committee if you had any other questions before I move to audience questions. I can't see everybody at once, so speak up if you do.
Okay.
Oh, now you're all back. Thanks, Bob.
There we go. Not a problem.
Okay, great. I'm going to start with our audience questions. Terry Turgeon had several, so we will go through them one by one. First, she had a comment to Dan, so she just wanted to say best of luck in Hudson. Grafton has been lucky to have you. Let's see. All right. Are services being offered as outlined in the IEP or being reduced? How are you handling services such as physical therapy or occupational therapy, which are very hands-on and often time providers are worried about being done remotely?
So that's a good question. I want to clarify that we're not providing special education services per se. Because of the unique circumstances under which it is that we're not able to. So the services it is that we have are an attempt to provide some structure and some learning opportunities for students to the greatest extent possible, but by no means am I suggesting that what we're doing is in replacement of or in any way, in addition to an IEP. These are learning opportunities that are guided by students' goals and objectives in our best attempts to help them receive the greatest amount of learning opportunities possible. As far as specifically talking in terms of occupational therapy and physical therapy, our occupational therapists and physical therapists actually put together an excellent online web page that shows different activities based on different issues it is that a student might have, so that parents can go and access those. And then they're actually leaning in to have conversations with parents to our most needy students in order to help further individualize what it is that they might need. So those kinds of therapies are some of the more challenging ones to do remotely, absolutely.
Yeah, we're doing, in that area, we're definitely doing a lot of consultation to parents and to families at home working with the students, really to focus in on some of that hands-on approach. So we're kind of trying to coach parents along. We are, like Bob said, both OT and PT created a fantastic website. So we're guiding parents to specific aspects of that website to really individualize it to their student. So if a student might be working on balance in their IEP goals, the PT will reach out to that parent specifically and point them in the direction of that balance activity that's on the website, encourage them to practice at a certain amount of times, things of that nature. So it's really been much more consultative, but they're utilizing those videos and activities that they've had on the website to guide parents and activities that they can do.
Great. Her next question is, Bob, what are you doing for your more complex students? Do parents have the resources and materials they need at home in order to be effective?
That's also an excellent question. Nicole has been reaching in with those particular teachers on a regular basis. So I'm going to step back and let her respond to this question.
Yeah, so our students specifically are in intensive needs students, which I'm assuming that's by more complex, that's kind of what we're talking about, students with a little more severe of a disability area. We are doing actually their own set curriculum. So our intensive needs teachers are creating a curriculum for those students to utilize, along with some additional like choice boards for parents. A lot of what they're focused in on is like utilizing functional living stuff to match some of their IEP goals that are presented. So they may have an objective or a goal on matching, and the team is really working on, given the materials parents have at home, okay, let's match some socks. You know, let's talk about like different types that we can match. The teams are also using different online platforms to help support. One of those is something called Boom Cards, which gives them a little bit more of an opportunity to mimic that hands-on selection of materials from small arrays of choices. So when they're asking students certain questions, you know, what is cat? Those Boom Cards pop up on the students' electronics and they can choose it on themselves. So they're trying to utilize different technological resources to help support the students to make some progress towards their goals. But the intensive needs special educators have all developed their own kind of set curriculum that they've distributed to their students that will focus in on their IEP objectives and what they're working on. Some of those students that are in those programs that may be able to access some more of the general education curriculum are. So if, you know, especially at some of our younger levels, if there's read alouds they can participate in, or some of the lessons on the board or morning meetings, the students are participating in those, and the special education teacher is providing the parent with any accommodations that that child might need in order to effectively participate. So that's a lot of what they're putting in place, and they are doing a lot of consultation as a whole team, because many of those students have several service providers, not just the special educator. So there's a lot of consultation and communication with the whole team. A lot of those parents are also having consultation with that whole group. So having them come up on a Zoom with the parent to kind of coach them through certain things that might be coming up for them at home as the child's trying to do their academic skills.
Thank you, Nicole. And a couple comments. Terry believes all students will experience some level of regression, and all children in special ed will need to be reevaluated once school returns to normal, was a comment. Then I commented. How are children, Grafton, handling children who are turning 3? Are you holding eligibility meetings for special ed? I think we answered that. Yep, we answered that on the fly. What is your plan for students who are turning 22 who may be transitioning? We answered that. Let's see. Comments. Are you providing consulting services or direct services? What are you doing to monitor OOD placements and the services that they are asking? Out of district placements, sorry.
Yep, so that's a good question. We've been regularly in contact with our out-of-district placements, and also have been reaching out to our parents whose children are placed in such placements, just to make sure that they're getting the kind of services it is that they need. Each of our out-of-district placements have also submitted remote learning plans or remote learning schedules, so that we are able to track the fact that those students are getting services. And much like a lot of school districts, some places are in different places as far as their timeliness in getting those things forward. And when they don't come in a timely fashion, then we kind of ask the question and lean in a little bit. But as of right now, the feedback that I've received from the parents is that they've been very, very pleased with their out-of-district services to date.
I have heard that same message, and that they've all heard from them. They're all doing different activities. So
that's not to say that there aren't been some students that are in those services that have struggled themselves in spite of the out-of-district programs attempt to reach out to them and everything. And those, of course, are students it is that once we do return, we're going to have to take a special look at.
And a few more. Thank you. What capacity do you have to provide all the compensatory services that will be due when we all return to school?
So compensatory services, the Department of Education right now has come out in Massachusetts is talking about additional services based on the COVID closure as opposed to compensatory services. And those are something that, again, it will be determined on a case-by-case basis as we've been directed to do so from the Department of Education.
Thank you. And then this is a question for probably Jay and Dan and the committee. Is the district planning in their fiscal year 21 budget adding more to their legal line items? It has been my experience that parents are particularly, oh my God, this is embarrassing. I can't say the word during this time, but more legal. What is it, Melissa?
Litigious.
Litigious. Got tongue-tied. Beautiful. English major right here. Anyway, during this time.
We'll certainly take a look at it. Dan and I are going to work on building an entirely new FY21 book. We're actually probably going to start that process tomorrow, so we can take a look at that. I think we've got that line isn't particularly tight for us, but we'll take a look at it.
Yeah, it's always pretty tight. And let's see. The last questions are, what about those children who are very complex, very, very complex? Yeah, nursing supports, how are those children doing? You know, we've all been concerned.
That's an excellent question as well. Actually, I had a conversation with parents of one of our students in district who have those kinds of needs just at the end of last week, kind of talking about the challenges it is that they've had. We had a Zoom meeting with the team today to kind of review that conversation and to have discussions about how it is that we as a district could lean in a little bit more in that particular student's case. And they're in the process of setting up a Zoom before the end of this week, I believe, in order to make contact with the parent and to talk about how those services might need to evolve. So that is also something it is that we need to look at as the circumstances kind of move forward, especially for our more fragile students.
Yeah, definitely. And then 2 more questions. What will you do in the fall? What will you do in the fall if out of district placements are still out? Will you create programs here? And then a comment, the rigor isn't there.
So right now, I wouldn't expect that there would be a circumstance where public schools would be returning and out-of-district schools would not be returning. As a matter of fact, the only schools in the Commonwealth that are allowed to still be in session are those schools that are out-of-district residential placements for 365 days. So when we return, I expect that those out-of-district placements will return as well.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any other questions? All right, Bob and Nicole, I appreciate all the work and you coming on to our meeting tonight. I know there's a lot of questions out there. Anybody, if you think of anything after, you are always more than welcome to reach out to Bob or Nicole directly, and they will provide. And if we need to have you back, we'll invite you back for a future meeting. I know this is challenging, so I appreciate all your work and keep it up. And if we can help in any way, let us know, please.
Absolutely. I thank you for the opportunity to meet with the committee and share what's going on. The most important thing that I want to leave you with is that I'm completely and utterly impressed and at times overwhelmed with the efforts that our staff have gone in order to support kids. It really is a testament to their professionalism in the midst of their own personal challenges for what it is that they've done and continue to do. So I just want to make sure that we recognize that and really appreciate that, because many of our special education teachers have multiple hats. They teach pull-out classes in addition to supporting inclusion co-taught classes in which they're having to accommodate and modify materials and participate in IEP meetings and still write IEPs. They're doing an amazing job, and I'm so grateful to work with them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you all so much for being so welcoming to us. we enjoy coming and being able to answer questions and clarify anything that people have concerns about. And Bob and I also just want to say we appreciate all you parents out there that are working so hard with your kiddos. You know, our general education kiddos and our special education kiddos, you know, it's not easy. And we appreciate all you're doing to, you know, keep your kids in line with where they need to be. It's certainly not easy. So we appreciate you supporting us. And if anyone has concerns, please reach out to us and how we can better support your child, because that's our main priority.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. Okay. You're welcome to stay or you're welcome to go. I know you have kids and things at home, so good night.
You know, I'm actually going to have dinner now. My work for the day is done.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good
All
night.
right, thank you very much. Take care
Thank
now.
you.
Bye-bye.
And Tracy, I'm going to turn it over to you for an update, please.
Great.
Go ahead and meet. Go, please.
So Jay and I would like to thank the 650 plus families who responded to our remote learning survey. I'm going to take just a minute or two to talk about the themes, the feedback that came from families, and how that is informing our next steps. Overall, as you can see, we asked parents to rate the quality of their children's remote learning experiences. We asked them to do that based on per children in the house. And you can see pretty much across the board, whether parents have 1 child, 2 children, or 3 children, we're looking at about an 80% rate of being quite pleased with the learning experiences at home. So we were thrilled with that. In addition to that, we learned that about 70% of students are spending 1 to 2 hours per day on learning, which was about our goal. We were looking for about half the school day. 97% of parents feel they have the materials needed for remote learning at home. 78% said that communications from the school was just right. And if there was an indication that it needed to be improved, it was simply that they were looking for communication from teachers, particularly in regard to feedback on learning. We did see a theme that elementary parents were looking for us to begin new learning in the elementary grades and to increase the feedback on any learning assignments that were coming into teachers. In addition to that, we received some requests to have more Zoom meetings with teachers, that they were helpful to kids. And we were very happy to see that over and over again, parents were commending us for doing an excellent job in supporting learning at home. And so with that information, coupled with guidance that came out from DESE this week, we are going to be looking at teaching content standards that are critical for the next grade level. In addition to that, DESE is looking for us to encourage consistent engagement in remote learning, to make our programming accessible, and to increase and maintain our communication with families. Of course, they would like us to focus on safety and well-being of our students, families, and staff, and maintain that connection. And so it was nice to see that the information that came from DESE is really kind of the steps we had already taken when we were first started to put together our remote learning plan. So I don't foresee that there's going to be any major change to our learning plan, other than the fact that we are going to start new content and skills in K through 5 on May 4th. And teachers will be providing feedback on academic tasks via Schoology, Seesaw, or maybe email in some cases. Additionally, I'm starting to very slowly roll out professional development that is completely voluntary and choice-based. Every Wednesday, I send out a list of Wednesday webinars. Tomorrow, 16 will go out, and they will range in focus from developing good discussion questions to teaching personal finance to children. And in addition to that, and probably the following week, I'm going to push out some choice PD via a tic-tac-toe board that if teachers choose to engage and stay with it, they will ultimately be able to earn 10 PDP points. And with that, I can take questions.
Once again, we have a question from the audience. I'll take questions from the committee first, and then we'll move on to the audience. Anybody?
I have one question, Tracy.
Sure.
Based on the feedback that you received, were you able to break it down to what age level they were?
Yeah, I was. So 6% of the respondents had kindergartners, 4% were from first grade, 7% second grade, 6% third, 7% fourth, 8% fifth, 7% sixth, 10% in seventh and eighth, 5% in ninth grade, 8% in 10th grade, 8% in 11th grade, and 7% in 12th grade.
Okay, so you got them all, but then what, I mean, it seems you seem to have a good mix, but there was no particular grade level that was on the, who weren't not satisfied? I guess I just want to make sure of that.
No, it didn't come out as one grade level in particular being on some, so 80% of the respondents said they were very, very pleased with the remote learning experiences. And then we asked for more commentary about what could we change if we were going to change something? And that's how I was able to get to themes about more feedback, begin new learning, those types of ideas.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
My question is around rate of participation. How are kids doing? Do we have a good sense of who's participating? And for the ones that are not, is there any update on what's happening there?
So I have a email out to the principals to gather that information. I know that they are working closely with teachers to maintain a very clear understanding of who is and isn't participating, but I can't give you a hard and fast number at this point. What I can tell you, Heather, is that what we planned from the beginning is happening. If teachers are finding that students are not participating, whether they're not involved in an online Zoom, or they're not handing in homework, or they're not getting any email responses, the teacher is following up, principals are following up with phone calls, and at the high school, guidance is involved as well.
Did that answer your question, Heather? Okay, thanks. Amy,
Sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the unmute, but yes, thank you. That did answer.
I know. Amy?
I just had a question. Yeah, I did. Tracy, you mentioned feedback at the elementary level, and I wonder if you got any comments around the high school level. I can speak for my own case. I haven't seen a tremendous amount come through.
Yep.
That's an ongoing situation, I'm assuming?
Yes, without a doubt. That was, and that was obviously Jay and I took the feedback from the survey and spoke with the administrators first. And so they're very clear on what the request is to increase feedback on learning, not only to make sure that kids are progressing in their learning, but also to maintain engagement. I think parents were pretty clear that if we're not providing feedback, then students might start to drop off a little bit. So everyone's aware.
Tracy, I have a question from Melissa. Thank you for that. How are the AP teachers feeling about their ability to prepare students for the upcoming online AP exams? What are they thinking?
So my understanding is that the AP teachers are feeling pretty good because the AP, the College Board is doing a tremendous amount to support them.
Yeah,
I'm really pretty impressed what the College Board has done. They've been very flexible in the dates. They've been very flexible in webinars for teachers to help them prep. I've been very impressed, and I think that the AP teachers are feeling much more comfortable knowing that those resources are there and how to go forward.
Great.
And I have to shout out to Sharon Buckley. She's really stayed on top of it and has been very, very helpful to the AP teachers and the department heads around that topic.
That's great.
So I have a question. It's not about the survey, but it's about the remote learning. So for kids who are, say you're in a class like chemistry and then the next year you'd move on to physics or something, where what are we thinking about when we get back to school, how we're going to catch kids up who would then move on from something that, while they're parallel, it's not a skill base. So you can't just, okay, we're moving on to algebra 2, we're going to review what you would have learned from Algebra 1 that you didn't get to learn or something like that, but like a completely different genre, but you would take one before the other.
Yep. So, I mean, even though we're not in the building, common planning is still happening. So departments are still meeting together to develop lessons and to decide what power standards to teach. And so, the direction from the start was to pick the power standards in the power standards that are most important for the next course or grade level. So with that directive, you've got common planning teams sitting down and thinking about, okay, if I'm teaching chemistry this year, we're now going to talk to the physics team. What do they want to make sure that we cover in this next quarter, so quote unquote remotely, to make sure that they're prepared? And then they're creating documents for me and for the department. So when we come back to school, physics has a document that shows what was taught when, and then they can alter and redo a scope and sequence based on that information.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Jen, did you have a question?
No, I'd like to hear from Tyler and James if they have anything they'd like to add.
Well, I'll go first. It's been amazing how much work we've actually been able to get done. I know, especially like in my AP stats class where they kind of changed the entire course around, or the test around. We've been able to review it all. Mr. Gamache has posted, I think he posts work, so for the assigned days, but then post tons of optional things. So I know I've been able to go deeper to review since we can't be there to review in person. He posts videos on his YouTube channel, on Schoology, so we have a bunch of different ways to access things. I know in almost all my classes, they've either had Zoom meetings, or they post the recordings of Zoom meetings, or they post things to their YouTube channel. And I found it extremely helpful being able to kind of always have that to go back, but to do it on my own schedule. So I'm remarkably pleased and very grateful to my teachers so far.
Yeah, going off of what Tyler said, for most of my classes, I get the teacher going over the notes and going through them like we would in class. And it's a recording of them so we can do it at any time. And what I've enjoyed is having to, not every assignment's due at the same time. So some of them will be due Tuesday and then Wednesday and then Thursday. So I don't have to worry about doing them all in one day. I can space it out and plan accordingly.
Nice. Thank you, guys. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, we have a couple of questions from the audience. Terry, it's from Terry Turgeon here. Hold on. Scrolling. Okay. Tracy, she asked, who aren't you reaching at home that you wish you were? And I guess I'll kind of parallel this one with it. For those that you haven't heard from, what's your plan for them?
So the ones that we haven't heard from, what is happening is that principals are reaching out and they are staying on it until they do. I have yet to hear from principals that they haven't been able to get in touch with anyone that anyone was concerned about at this point in time.
Okay. And then we've talked about this in the past, but this is a good update. Are there any Grafton families that need Wi-Fi access? Jay, I think you addressed this at our last meeting.
Yep, we have identified that. It was actually something even prior to the coronavirus that we had done. We had already purchased and distributed a number of mobile hotspot devices and then set people up with those. We doubled that effort with the coronavirus, and we believe that we are fully covered across the district right now.
Great. And if people aren't and need Wi-Fi, they can reach out to you or to Neil?
Yep, they can always reach out to me. That's probably the easiest way, and I connect them with tech support. At this point going forward, unless somebody loses their Wi-Fi connectivity, everybody again should be all set. Neil's also been great working with local providers. Sometimes people, maybe their service isn't as good as they had hoped or they needed to be, and they're not sure what to ask or what to do. And the tech team's been really good working with people to address household Wi-Fi issues.
Good, thank you. And then how are you teaching those power standards to special education? This is from Terry, not to sound crazy, but it should be immersed, not regular and special ed.
So it is immersed, and so the co-teachers are helping not only to plan but also deliver lessons across the board.
And she says, I feel like we were talking about two different worlds. And then I think to the Wi-Fi question, that's great, Jay. Thank you. Inside of 2 hours. That must mean, are they, Terry, I need you to clarify your question, please. Like, are they learning all this within 2 hours? Is that what you're asking? I know. It's difficult. We're doing the best we can with this new world. I think we're doing an okay job. So I wish you could talk to.
I can say that in my experience, just to build off of what Tracy was talking about, one of my children has an IEP and receives some support. So every morning she goes to different classes. She also has, on a regular basis, I don't know if it's every day, meets virtually with her special education teacher and a para. They're on the call at the same time. Generally, it's just the three of them. Sometimes if the parent needs to be involved, I've sat in to figure out what she needs to, catch up on or work on. And they're really good about, almost like with like an academic support class that you would have at school, of talking to all of the subject areas, what's being modified, what needs to be prioritized, what needs to be focused on in terms of those standards. They're great about explaining that not only to my daughter, but to me, so that I can help her, when I'm done working, it can give her some additional help. So I'm guessing that's been my experience as a parent. I'm assuming that's being replicated district.
Yes, and you have to remember that we're not teaching a full list of power standards. We're only teaching the power standards that are critical for the next grade level or the next course. And it's being paired completely way back to the essential skills and content. And what co-teachers are doing is they're helping to plan and modify, and in many cases, they're even on the Zoom with the gen ed teacher.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Great. Yeah.
I have sort of an unrelated question, if I could, Laura.
Yeah.
We talked about making sure the students have everything they need at home. And I just wanted to kind of ask about our teachers. How are they doing? How are they getting what they need? And who's checking in on them? I haven't seen this happen, but I know it happens where, some of our teachers are home with young kids, or sick parents that they're caring for. And I just wanted to see, kind of what's the situation with our teachers? How are they doing?
So I think that I think a lot of that would have to do, in general, I think they're doing well. Jay and I are pretty clear, and the administrators in particular, on making sure that they are not completely overwhelmed, because we know they have to homeschool as well. That's essentially what they're doing, many of them. I think what we've tried to do, and I think a good example of it would be in the K-1 buildings, is try to split up the work, so to speak. So North Grafton and South Grafton are basically collaborating so that some are presenting lessons, some are designing the activities. So it's not just falling just on one teacher. And we're doing that so not only to lighten the load in case there is a sickness at home or there are children to educate, but in case one of the teachers gets sick, we don't want to be down a class, a teacher for a class. So we have a buffer in place, and that's happening pretty much across the board with the grade levels, is we're kind of doing a tag team approach.
Good. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. That explains what I've been seeing with my younger daughter with 6th grade. I'm seeing work from teachers that are not even in the same building sometimes, and I'm like, oh, who is this? So that's helpful to me as a parent to know that that's what's going on.
Yes.
And I assume that they're all set technologically.
Yes. I mean, I think some of them we've all learned Zoom. I think some of them have learned some things you never thought they would learn. But, I find that they're enjoying it, because they'll email me and say, I learned this, or I watched this webinar and you should push this out. So it's certainly been, I think it was a little bit baptism by fire, but I think people are getting much more comfortable. And I'm interested to see how education will change as a result when we return.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That was
Tracy,
funny
in
'cause-
regards to that, sorry, Laura.
no, that's okay, Heather.
I was just going to say with the Zoom, that was one of the requests in the survey is that people wanted. So did you make that request to teachers and did they respond?
So we discussed it with the administrators, and what we have said is that we have to be a little bit careful with Zoom only because we can't offer only on live, because we want to make sure that all students can see the Zoom when it is they can see the Zoom. So we've looked at trying to do at least one live once a week, but to make sure everything is pre-recorded. So we are moving in that direction. But again, we're also being very cognizant that some teachers are very, very comfortable with it and are running with it, and others are a little bit more hesitant. So we're trying to make sure we're having an even playing field, so to speak.
Yeah, and the students need encouragement to do it as well. You know, it's one of those things, it's like working out, they're reluctant to do it. And then when they do, it's like, oh, actually that was really great because I got to connect with classmates and with teachers. But I've noticed around here, it takes a little bit of encouragement.
Yes, it does.
And are there plans to do another survey and assessment in terms of how things are going?
Yeah, Jay and I talked a little bit about once we have some new learning rolling out in the elementary grades, maybe push out another survey, maybe mid-May, late May, and see how folks are doing and if there's anything else we need to tweak.
Great. Any other questions from the committee? I see a couple more questions that came in from the audience. Going back to special ed, so it takes special ed students more time to learn these things, add low incidence disabilities, and it's completely different. Try teaching a low vision kid chemistry. I've heard that more teachers are more outgoing than others and that teachers may not be in complete support of this at all. I think you just addressed that, Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the case. You know, we're always going to have some that are just going to embrace it and love it, and some who are going to be just uncomfortable with the change. In addition to this, you know, I think the one thing that we were hearing from parents repeatedly in the beginning is they were afraid that their child was going to fall behind. What I've said, the principals have said repeatedly, and I'm happy to say it again, no one's going to fall behind because all of this is going to have to be retaught. Everything in some way, shape, or form is going to have to be reviewed. We're going to meet kids where they are. You know, there's going to be a lot of pre-testing happening, and there's going to be a lot of pre-assessment and deciding what needs to be reviewed and what needs to be retaught. And everyone's pretty clear that that's the way it's going to roll out in the fall.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. You just answered my question that I was thinking, like, we are eventually going to have to assess, and that's not a bad thing, but we're going to have to assess and see where kids are and where teachers are. I mean, you know, I think we're getting through now, and this is a whole new world, and we need grace and time, and we're adapting, and we're going to see some of the benefits, like what James said about being able to work on his own time, I think is a huge benefit. I'm seeing within my own household that my children are less tired because they are less scheduled and they don't have to get up as early, and some people enjoy learning this way and some people don't, because just like in public schools, there's all different ways on how we teach and how we learn, and people need to benefit, you know, and kind of learn from different ways. And I hope we do take some of the positives that have come out of this into education. I was going to make a joke, but it's not really. Like, I in college wrote an article for the paper about how I didn't believe in grades. I always believed in learning for the sake of learning, and it's kind of, I know Melissa's like, but it's nice. It's a nice thing in a little bit to just kind of learn, and maybe we can take some of this and move on when we rethink what education is and what it really means. But that's my 2 cents. Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Great.
Terry had one more question.
Oh,
about,
thanks, Deb.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. You can ask it, or you can.
No, go ahead. Why don't you ask?
It just says, Tracy, when you say retaught, do you expect that the governor will expect the students will redo grades?
Jen, I didn't hear the last part of it. Can you repeat it?
It says, when you say retaught, do you expect that the governor will expect that students will redo grades?
Actually, the guidance coming from DESE is that students should be moved on to the next grade level, to the next course, with the intention of relooking at scope and sequences to make sure that they have the content and skills needed to move forward within that next grade level.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Tracy, and thank you to everybody. And I loved hearing about the professional learning that's still going on. And I'm guessing you just had to completely redo your professional learning on how to do this remotely. I know there's collaboration across the state from schools and teachers. Everybody's kind of sharing best practices. I know in our school committee listserv, people have been sharing their remote learning plans. Everybody's working together. So that's nice, the spirit of collaboration. So I'm sure you've been a leader there, and people have been taking what we do here in Grafton and replicating it. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to future agenda schedule planning. Jay, do you want to go first?
Sure. So on the 12th, I had written down just some things that I was considering in terms of schedule. Was asking Kristen Gasper to join us and provide an update on HR stuff, if you will. We'll have Dan's, for the process for filling Dan's role, that will be, further in motion. We talked about, and we'll get to this in a minute, but we should, Dan and I should have a better estimate in terms of our spending for FY20, and we can update the committee on the development of the new FY21 book on May 12th. And ideally, probably wishful thinking, we'll have guidance from DESE or the state regarding summer planning, but that's probably overly optimistic. So those were the things that I had kind of tentatively put on our schedule.
Okay, and I wanted to add, last 2 weeks ago when we met, or 3 weeks ago, I had asked that we could move Jay's eval. Since then, the select board moved back the June election to June 23rd. So we get to have Melissa and Heather a little longer, which is great. So I would like to recommend that we finish Jay's evaluation by June 9th. And I checked with Jay and he's okay with that date. I'll send out more guidelines before that in an email. Jay will do his self-eval, and then we'll have a couple of weeks for us to all evaluate him, if that works for everybody. Great, thanks. And thanks for your flexibility. And Jay, if it does turn out that it's too much right now, let us know.
This will be fine.
Okay.
Is there anything else for the 12th that people are thinking they might want us to focus on? All right, well, as things come up, just let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the questions that we're all getting are the same questions you're getting, and we don't have the answers. The number one question I'm seeing a lot, of course, is what we're doing for the seniors, how we can celebrate them. I think that's probably going on in the high school level.
Oh, yeah.
And if we can support as a school committee in any way that would be meaningful to seniors, of course we will. But I think as soon as, I think Jim sent out a great email, and I know people want answers, but just maybe letting people know that it is under discussion. Of course, we're going to honor our seniors in a way that can be honored appropriately. Another question we're getting a lot is when people can get their stuff. Sorry.
Yeah,
I know. Well, I know one of my child was like, I need my math book. Would help me.
I know. A lot of people need their notebooks and
Their
coats.
notebooks.
Yeah, I've answered this every single day, numerous times. We're waiting on the state to give us the green light to open the buildings. Once that happens, we will come up with a plan. We'll probably obviously still stagger it and have some degree of social distancing, et cetera, but we will do that. If it looks like we're not going to be able to get in until the fall, we've talked about all kinds of things, having the custodial and maintenance staff basically go to every locker, if you would, and bag everything and have those available. But we still have stuff that is in classrooms, especially at the elementary level. You know, they've got a cubby in their class or in their desk, and they want that stuff. Myself nor the custodians or maintenance is going to know whose, you know, coat is whose, and it's just fraught with problems. So we've got our fingers crossed that we'll be given the green light at some point in probably June, July. And as soon as we do, we can open up the district or the buildings in a purposeful way and let people get in. Anybody that did have anything that was critical, we have made arrangements with the individual, between the parent and the principal, and we've made that happen.
Good, thank you. Okay, any other questions or future agenda items? That was kind of off agenda, I guess, on my part.
At some point, we'll discuss the calendar, I'm assuming. I don't know that we're going to be able to discuss that next time, but.
What would you like to discuss about it?
Well, I mean, looking at, you know, are we going to stick with what we had planned? Or are we going to start school earlier, or are we going to have to push it later? We don't know yet, but those are possibilities that are going to have to be discussed on a future agenda.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind.
I have a question. The handbook, do we need to have another vote on perhaps the Grafton High handbook if they changed GPA and things like that?
I don't think a vote would hurt. We could do that.
I just know we voted before on the handbook, so since it's being revised, I just wasn't sure that was a formality that we're supposed to do also.
Yeah, we can do that. My only hesitation is the degree. Usually we do, it's a good thing, but a bit of a dog and pony show for all the changes, etc. I'm a little concerned that Jim, Carla, and Kevin, along with everybody else, are, you know, going 24/7, it seems, and they're swamped. Maybe I can have them simply give a summary, which they have certainly done through emails and communication. A summary. I'm sure Jim would be more than happy to join us at the next meeting on the Zoom call, just to go over everything. But I'd like to do it in a way that's not as, I guess, labor intensive, or as minimize that as much as possible.
Yeah, and I don't think we necessarily need to present. I know he already sent out an email, and we can just kind of go from there. I don't know, but yeah, I don't expect a big presentation, anything out of it. I just didn't know.
Okay. I mean, it's really, it's our own or your own policy. And it's a good thing to adhere to it. I think we're all with the understanding that we could do it at May 12th. And then the next week, you know, we get news from DESE and we've got to have some changes implemented to us that by default impact something in the handbook. So I'm not hearing this, but as long as we know that on a regular basis, we're going to have to do whatever's mandated of us. And sometimes it's going to not be in perfect alignment with what we have in the handbook.
If we want to wait until June, I'm okay with that too.
Okay. I'll talk to Jim. I'm sure he'd be fine with it. And it would at least, even if we did it once a month, maybe, and just update on the things that have changed and therefore have impacted some component of the handbook, I think that would make sense. So I'll talk to him about the 12th.
Yeah, thanks. All right, we have several minutes because we passed over some last time, or I didn't bring them up. So we have minutes from March 10th, March 24th, and April 7th.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from March 10th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Do I have any discussion? All those in favor, we'll need a roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa Maison,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather Riley,
Heather Riley, yes.
Laura Often, yes. Vote carries 5-0.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from March 24th, 2020 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, we'll need a roll call vote. All those in favor? Heather, sorry.
Heather Riley, yes.
Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa Maison,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, yes.
Laura Often, yes. Messed that up, but 5-0. And one more set. Motion carries.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from April 7th, 2020 as written.
Second.
Motion made and second. I'll take a roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa Maison,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy Marr,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather,
Heather Riley, yes.
Laura Austin, yes. Motion carries 5-0. All right, thank you. And then we have a financial report for 20 and 2021 budgets. Do we want to hold off? It's on the agenda.
I have some information I could share about FY20.
Okay.
Just today, we've had some districts negotiating, all the districts that have AA Transportation as their provider. We had two of the finance directors negotiate on behalf of us with AA, and the contract came back today, the agreement. So it looks like we've agreed to pay 75% of the 63 days that we missed on school. So that's basically a 25% savings for those 63 days, which will be a little over $100,000 savings. Besides that, there's a few other vendors that we're still talking with, special education transportation, special education tuitions. For the most part, I think we'll be paying 100% of those. But over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be looking at salaries and all the expenses. And like Jay said, we're hoping to give you guys an update at the next meeting on FY20. And then, if that does result in leftover funds in FY20, we'll be able to use those to try to help the FY21 budget by potentially prepaying out of district tuitions. That's something that we're able to do, or something like that. But we can give you more updates as we get closer to the end of the year.
Okay. Dan, I have a question. I know we've seen some people ask about refunds for their fees for parking and bus fees. I know we're working on a plan for that, or I think we're working on a plan.
We're working on a plan for that, for transportation, for bus fees and parking fees. Those fees are $200 per year. We're planning on refunding $60 to families. We'll have to just get a list together of who paid, and then we'll be sending out checks to their home address. That's the plan right now. Still working on logistics on that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
With the bus company, is the 75%, do we know, is the bus company continuing to pay drivers, and is that what that?
So they had laid off the drivers, but they're gonna, with this agreement, they're gonna bring back the drivers. That they're able to bring back the drivers with those monies. They have all along been paying health and dental still, but they're bringing them back, paying them what they would normally make.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dan? I feel like there's a lot of questions.
I was just going to ask along with the buses, like instead of giving checks to everyone, can we just have a refund except for maybe the seniors who are, you might have to pay them, but give people a credit? Or is that too difficult to?
Yeah, that's another possibility. I'm gonna try to talk with that. Try to think about that and how that would work and what's easier logistically. I'm not sure logistically which one's going to be easier.
Does that hurt our 2021 budget though, if taking in less from fees for parking and busing if they have credits? Or does it?
We'll take in when we take in those fees, we put them in a bus, like a transportation revolving fund. So the money would either come now or come in FY21, but the revolving fund transfers over, like just rolls over every year. So we'll still have the same balance come the fall that we would if we collect it now or later.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks. Yeah, I know there's a lot of questions about 20 and if we're going to save any money, and obviously there's a lot of question marks for 21. So we'll look forward to the presentation in a couple weeks. Any other questions for Dan? And we do have a lease we need to vote on tonight from Apple. Dan, do you want to give us a overview of that?
Sure. So that's a lease that we've been doing every year since I got here. And I believe it started back when we first got iPads for the high school when we went to a one-to-one program to get all the iPads for all the kids. It was a lot of money to afford in 1 year. So what was done is we have a 4-year kind of a rolling lease. It's a 4 years of payments. This year they asked that the school committee start taking a vote every year to approve the lease. It's just kind of one extra step that they usually add a couple of steps every year based on circumstances that happen throughout the country when they're just to protect themselves. But so this lease that you're voting on, it's basically the similar amount, same payment actually from FY21 that we have now. Nothing's really changing. What we do every year is we kind of roll this 4-year lease and then get the equipment that we need based on our technology plan. We have a refresh plan in place with Neil Trahan to refresh the iPads at the high school and then other equipment that's Apple equipment throughout the district. So each year we get 250 iPads for freshmen. It varies a little depending on the class size of the freshman class. And then we get some additional iPads for all the other grades. So then they're used for special education or some are used for replacements. So that comes out to 300 iPads. 250 of them are with keyboard cases for the freshmen. Each kid at the high school has a keyboard case with their iPad. And then we're also getting 5 laptops and 10 desktop computers to refresh the stock that we have for the staff. So it's a pretty typical, very similar to what we did last year. The only difference this year is they're asking that you guys take a vote, that we show a record that the school committee voted to approve it.
Okay. Any questions for Dan? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the lease between Grafton Public Schools and Apple Inc. to enter a 4-year lease for $556,729.28 to procure iPads, iPad cases, desktop computers, and laptop computers.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a roll call vote. Jen Conley?
Jen Conley, yes.
Melissa?
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy?
Amy Barr, yes.
Heather Riley?
Heather Riley, yes.
And Laura Often, yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And we have several warrants, number 40, 42, and 44.
I move the school committee approve the warrant article number 40 dated April 2nd, 2020 in the amount of $309,643.09.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Jen Conley,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather,
Heather Riley, yes.
and Laura Often, yes. Motion carries 5-0. All right, next warrant, please.
I move the school committee adopt warrant article number 42 dated April 16th, 2020 in the amount of $315,663.82.
I second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Jen,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather,
Heather Riley, yes.
Laura Often, yes. Motion carries 5-0. And the last one.
I move the school committee adopt warrant article number 44 dated April 30th, 2020 in the amount of $250,959.14.
I second.
Motion made second. Any further discussion? All right, roll call. Jen,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather.
Heather Riley, yes.
All right, motion carry. Oh, Laura Often, yes. Oof, motion carries 5-0. Oh, and good thing we are coming to the end. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Jen,
Jen Connolly, yes.
Melissa,
Melissa Maison, yes.
Amy,
Amy Mar, yes.
Heather,
Heather Riley, yes.
Laura, yes. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Good night,
Thank you.
Grafton. Stay safe. Be careful. Be well. Good night.